next I get to sit down again for a little bit. We have another fireside chat now. This time we'll be chatting all about leading your personal growth. So please welcome to the stage Elena Bladh, who's the VP of Engineering at Aircall. Elena, thank you. Right, so we've had lots of versions of your name. Are we going with L for today? L, okay, nice and easy. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody then, El?
Well, my name is El. I'm having, as usual here, a software engineering background. I was working for quite a while, and last 10 years I progressed to more managerial roles, so I switched from the expert path more to the leadership path, and my previous 2 roles was as executive in the platform companies.
Great. I want to kick off with, and maybe I'm just getting really into the semantics, but I'm particularly interested in the title of what it is we're talking about. So, leading your personal growth, with the emphasis on leading rather than managing, I guess, in that we're used to using that, that terminology and that distinction when we're talking about how you lead or you manage your teams, the difference between managing your team or leading your team. But I'm particularly interested in applying it to yourself as well. If you're managing yourself, you're managing your time, you're making sure you're doing stuff. But as you're leading yourself, then you also need to follow yourself and give yourself choices. And I wanted to make sure, I guess, that you put as much thought into that choice of words, or am I just reading too much into it?
No, it's a lot of thoughts. I actually have a clear distinction between management and leadership. Mm-hmm. So leadership is something when you're setting a goal, you're pushing yourself forward. Managing is when you're planning and executing. So it's much narrower focus. And leading yourself, it means that you're pushing yourself beyond certain boundaries. Mm. Something that you indicated that you are lacking, then you have intrinsic motivation why you need to develop this, and then you're trying to build this plan, and you are setting the example for everyone else, and you're pushing yourself constantly. Right. Of course, management is a part of this discipline.
You need to manage yourself to actually get that done, but I say it's that real emphasis on that you're leading not just the people around you, but yourself as well. You'll see the QR code, and obviously in the app. Do please send your questions through the whole time in Slido, and we will weave them in as we go. So yeah, we're talking about leading yourself, personal growth. What do you want people to know then? I guess are CTOs particularly good at this? Is there lots of work that they should be doing? Why is this such an important topic to you then?
It's important because I stepped into a leadership role and executive leadership role. You saw the presentation from Crystal. It's quite a long list what we need to manage and what we need to learn, actually. And when you're approaching all of that, it's become very fast, very overwhelming. And the anchoring here, the thought is how you are prioritizing, what is important for you, and most important, why you're doing this. If you're doing this because of extrinsic motivation, it's something what you are ticking the box, sort of. It doesn't stick. You're just completing this because you need to do certain tasks, and then you're learning how to do those tasks, and then you're forgetting as soon as task is executed. Right. And when you're leading your growth based on your intrinsic motivation, you're stopping thinking about why you actually need this. And when you're asking yourself those 5 whys, you understand what is your driver, what is your engine, what is igniting you really to dedicate a certain amount of time, and it's quite a lot of time, to a certain point, and how it's contributing to the greater good. Right. So for me, it's important. I found this, my intrinsic motivations, building teams who are enjoying working in the workplace. So that it's not a DevX just from the tooling perspective, right? It's a culture, it's what drives everyone to come to work and do their best. And then it's a set of different attributes which are collectively contributing to the whole development experience. And it's quite broad, and everything is coming to culture. How you're establishing this culture, how you're motivating people. So, and everything what I learn where I'm doing a deep dive more or less resonates with this, my target.
Okay. I guess what really strikes me, I know obviously we speak to a lot of CTOs, and even the last couple of days we have as well, there isn't a blueprint for it though. It's not like you can say, right, this will be your personal growth journey, this is how you do it, start here and this is where you'll end up. It is that, again, picking up on the words, it's that emphasis on personal. But there are going to be steps that people should take, or there's some commonality in strategy, I guess, to it. So yeah, it's such a personal thing. How do you start? How does somebody even know how they need to grow or get that kind of awareness, really?
Yeah, as CTO, it's someone was saying it's pretty lonely role, right? So you don't have this luxury of getting feedback so much. It's usually like two layers up or one layer up, and it's not the same type of feedback, and it's not that continuous. So first of all, you need to think about how you're getting this feedback. How are you creating a safe environment, which was we talked about before, as how are you creating this environment that people can openly say to you what they think that it would be more useful for you to improve or what to do. And you need to really listen for the signals of what exactly you need to improve. And yeah, I think it's the most important one. And the second one would be you need to have a time, allocate a time to really stop, slow down, take 3 steps back and understand like what is the most important here and plan your work on this. Again, back to the Kaizen, we're all working in an agile environment. It's a continuous improvement. It's not that you are collecting the whole list of what you need to improve and then trying to tick the boxes. Yeah. It's the continuous process. You're experimenting on yourself as well. You're experimenting on organization which you are leading. And the feedback loop should be very short.
Again, what you just said about deciding what's the most important, I guess it's going to vary day to day as well, and not just the situation that you're in, but that for one person to the next, but also the company that they're working in and the state of the business or the market. Those priorities are going to shift all the time as to what is the most important thing that they can look at. And even on feedback, one of the things that when I'm working with people that always strikes me is it's really easy to go ask for feedback and get lots of feedback. It doesn't mean you have to use all of it. The most important thing is how are you going to integrate that feedback? How are you going to use that? And if you even choose to or not. That's a massive balancing act then between what do I want to listen to, what do I take on board, what does the business need of me now, what do my teams need of me now. That could be a full-time job in itself, really. So there's a massive balancing act for everybody to try and figure that stuff out too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The organization is changing very fast because environment around is changing very fast. What's important for each CTO to think to listen for the signal. Community is super important in all of that because you get the noise and the signals from different organizations, different situations. I was at my previous workplace, so we went ups and downs, starting with the business is going down and we have 2 months of runaway, to like now we are on the way up and we are getting investment and we become a unicorn, and we are scaling 3 times. So it's and during all this time, you're really exercising your adaptability and the compartmentalization and priority. Right. Can't focus on everything.
When you say that, though, when you're scaling up massively and everything's very nice and rosy, I think one of the things that I know that we've talked about already, and I'm really aware of it with lots of people, is that kind of that comfort zone can be a really dangerous place. Like when everything's easy, it's easy. Why do you need to go push yourself or to challenge yourself or to do anything else? Sometimes even just recognizing the fact that you're in that comfort zone and that you need to get out of it can be hard for people. So what kind of advice or experience do you have of that with people?
I think it's the biggest trap for seasonal CTOs, right? So everyone thinks we've been there, we've done that, I was scaling an organization. But when you look even in the problem of scaling, if you have been doing this 3 years ago, like before Corona, the situation is absolutely different how you need to do it now. It's the different setup of the work environment. It's a different, market for engineering. Engineering market is always changing and so on and so forth. So CTOs and any leader need to be very conscious of those cognitive biases. So don't assume that you know something. Don't think that the setup and the conditions of the previous situation would be absolutely the same, templated and applicable for the new situation. Be self-critical.
It's a challenge for some people, though, we know it is. We do have some questions coming in, so let's have a look at a few of them. Again, swap my glasses. So, yeah, someone has highlighted, thank you. What daily habits have you found, then, that are most beneficial for your own personal growth as a tech leader?
Ooh, the first one is a stolen one. So Bezos does it. Everyone is doing this. So you need to have a personal time, like 1 hour, some in the morning or like whatever suits you. I prefer in the morning that you have 1 hour when you're doing some certain things, like, and you are allocating this time to think. Right. Just about one particular topic, not specifically like, okay, now I'm planning my workday, but you need to have this landing zone. And then you need to develop habit out of this. And then you will gain more and more from those routines which you're establishing. And of course, focus time is very important when you are deep diving, because we are all struggling with a lot of context switching in the organization. It's high and lows, it's operational topics, it's a planning, it's a strategy. It's a lot. And you need to have this time which are always in the same, your organization, your peers, your team, everyone knows that this time is yours and you are doing some significant like deep dive work. You need to have that undisturbed time. So I found those two things super important.
I always find it used to be the commute for me. If I remember like pre-COVID days, I used to travel in and out of London every single day from Somerset, so like 3 hours in, 3 hours out every single day. But that time, and don't like judge me too bad, I don't do it anymore, but that time was my most creative. That's where it was the marker between the day, working the day and then finishing. Switching to remote full time threw all that away, and it had to reset all of those habits. I found my work day was longer, and you lose a lot of that. So I'd imagine a lot of people's habits, you must have seen it change a lot over the last few years.
I feel you. Right now I'm working fully remote, 100%, and I'm just traveling to a workspace just to have this time, even if it's just a half an hour, but to have this start and end. We are creatures of nature and habits, so we need to establish these habits. It brings calmness. And then you can think in a much better way.
Cool. So how would you know that it is time to move to the next step as a tech leader?
Interesting question. The next step as a tech leader, so it depends what are your aspirations, what is your drive. Again, back to extrinsic and intrinsic. When I started my career, it was so important for me to prove the world that girl can code, that I can achieve something. I grew up in Russia, a very patriarchal society. I was told through all my university time that girls can't code, even if I started to work as an engineer from the 3rd grade. Like, it was so much important for me to prove that they are wrong, which is absolutely wrong thing to do. Seriously. And when I finally relaxed this, I understood I don't need to prove anyone. I need to understand what I want to do for myself, what drives me. And from that point, my career started to develop in one direction or another. I'm not obsessing about titles. I'm not obsessing about this climbing the ladder. It's about how you can bring the value. Right. And if you're not learning, if you're not improving yourself, you can contribute with the value delivering to your team. And then it's basically meaningless. So we need really to assess, maybe it's a time to move on. I know that I didn't answer really this question, but I think it's very important.
It depends where your goal is. You say like move on to next step. It could be the next step of your personal growth or your career or whatever it may be. But you've got to have an idea of where you're going in order to know that there even is a next step, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Next one that I can see on the list. How important do you think it is for a senior leader to have access to a coach and or a mentor to help lead their growth? Do you have any advice for people that don't have these? So a lot of what you're talking about are clearly the kind of conversations that you would have with a coach, just trying to figure out what your goals are or working on those personal growth elements is what we use coaches for. Be interested, actually, quick show of hands, how many people here do have a coach that they use on a personal basis? Not very many, actually. Interesting. So after this, that will all change because everybody will totally see the value of it. So yes, go tell us.
I think it's the most invaluable thing. Like, it's super important to have someone, maybe not a coach, like professional coach, but in general to have someone to talk to who need to give you objective feedback. Right. Because at work, you have peers. It would be always subjective. It would be on a particular task. It's also important. But when you have this unfiltered communication with someone, when you can really get some input, listen to their feedback, also listen to their experience and how they are navigating the situation, which are maybe not absolutely the same, but this, based on the pattern recognition, you can extrapolate this. It's super important. Community is very important. You learn so much, even if it's not your scale of organization, not your situation. You learn something what is can come, or what you have experienced and you can help also. So I think those two things, like coaching, not necessarily that, because I was not using professional coaching before, maybe it's wrong, but community and peer, someone with whom you can discuss objectively subject is super important. And I've been actually through the CTO exec education at Cambridge. It's basically what is most important, what I took from this. Of course, it's the framework, case studies, and all of that. But the community which you are building around yourself, you're solving together different problems, you are discussing this, you're establishing the network for life, which helps you to grow and helps you to have this self-insight.
It's that, and it's one of the things when I'm interviewing people, when I'm hiring, one of the things that I often ask them to describe for me is the difference between coaching and mentoring, just to make sure that people really understand it. But I think probably to get the kind of growth that we're talking about, you need both, and that's it. It's not just having one resource or one person that you speak to. It's having someone to reflect with as a coach, having a mentor that's been there, done that. And again, it's going to sound like a plug, and it totally is because I'm involved in it as well, is the CTO Craft Mentor Circles, where just the value of, it's literally a group of CTOs that they're not experts in anything, they're not trained in anything, but what they have is real life experience, and just sharing their experience of one issue or another, they get so much out of it. It's great to go see that. So yeah, places like this, even in the coffee break, you can go have those conversations, can't you? So what other resource then would you recommend for people to go and go get that kind of feedback and community and expand that network? Where should they go?
CTO Craft, obviously, because I'm also a member of Circle, and I think it's, you are ahead of the curve. You're hearing and you're listening things which are happening in another organization which might come to your organization as well. A lot of information in the podcast, and I love Elena's podcast, which is actually about PLG, like product-led growth, more on development. But he always interviewing so interesting people who have a different experience. It's almost like the same. You are keeping yourself ahead of the curve because the one topic or another will resonate with you, will come. It's about how, through which lens you are listening.
Right, okay. One that's really easy to read because it's nice big writing. What mistakes did you make which may have helped you in your personal growth as a tech leader? And I've jumped straight to that one because everybody loves to hear about mistakes. So, and I think we do learn so much more from the stuff that's gone wrong than the nice, smooth sailing, easy path, don't we? So yeah, what kind of mistakes have you made that others can learn from?
I think the biggest mistake which each leader does when they are just starting their leadership path, it's when you are trying to do everything by yourself.
Right.
You really think that now I'm in this position. You have this huge imposter syndrome, obviously, and then you're starting to deep dive in all those directions, especially when you're progressing from the expert path. I think yesterday we were discussing about this coding CDO and VS leadership. So you're trying to solve all problems yourself. And you think the scope of your role is about being very much in details and guiding the team. Mm-hmm. Guidance is not knowing everything about everything. It's about asking the right questions. So right questions and learning how to ask those right questions is very important. And the second thing which you need to understand that as a leader, you're never the author of the story. Right. You are editor. And it's where the struggle of releasing this sort of your pieces of Lego and give it someone else, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Okay. Jumping down as well, I guess on that similar kind of journey of that kind of tips and you're working through and you're figuring out what leadership really is for you and how you do it. So can you share any tips on handling the stress that comes with continually adapting to new roles and expectations? We talked about what a varied role CTO is. I mean, it's variable from one company to the next, one team to the next, but small startups to massive enterprises, there's no two jobs are the same really from what I see. And with that comes so much stress. So what's the vent then for that? How can people help manage that?
So I think Crystal was showing this segment what is important, urgent, not urgent. So this is the first step. So you need to have this free time at the beginning of the day to plan and understand where you are. Mm-hmm. What are you focusing on? Then, of course, through the day, a lot of things are thrown at you all the time. And you need to think about the leaders' mental condition is reflecting directly to the team. So they sense, they feel that something is off. If you are stressed, they will be stressed. It's where even more pressure is coming, that you need to be calm, you need to be focused, you need to define what you are not doing. But I don't have like silver bullet on all of that. But what helps me is to have this time when you are just slowing down. Even if it's the crisis and you have a lot to do right now, then block this time, stop and think, because when you're moving slow, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Right.
Then you will be solving that.
So how did you learn this yourself? Have you learned by mistakes?
Try and error, try and error.
So is this what you wish somebody had told you and you'd managed to learn on your journey from that? As in, can you learn from somebody else telling you this, or is there just an element of people will make mistakes and they just have to learn it for themselves as well? What do you wish you'd learned really back then?
I think one thing when you are learning, it's like when you're getting kids, you know? Everyone is saying that it's wonderful and difficult, and you're like, no, I will be acing this. And then when you're in it, I'm like, oh my God. So approximately the same here. And yeah, you need to understand that perfect is the enemy of good. And stop to be perfectionist. And this will be helping you to understand that mistakes are good, you are learning from them. Persistence is super important. So you never should give up. You need to consciously understand that you will not continue on this path, but you are not giving up. It's a different thing.
Okay. We talked a little bit about how you prioritize and how you need to focus on that kind of that journey and prioritizing that personal growth. The question there then at the top, what advice do you have for aspiring tech leaders seeking to prioritize personal growth while effectively leading their teams in a fast-paced industry? It's so easy, isn't it, to get, like you say, protect that time at the start of the day, but then actually Slack messages start pinging and the world explodes in a pandemic and everything goes to pot and everything else changes. Any tips? How do they make sure? How do you, I guess, also communicate to other people that, look, this is important, not just for me, but for us as a business? And how visible do you make it? How do you make it a priority so that everybody knows this is something that's worthwhile as well?
I think with everything is happening, you need to really anchor this. This is our vision, this is our mission, strategy, and then objectives. And the role of the leader is not to put more on the table, it's actually to remove from the table. Right. And when you are clearly communicating, and again, communication is the most difficult part because everyone has their perception of what you said and the interpretation of this through their lens of experience. So when you clearly communicating all of that and you are actually actively removing things from the table of your peers or your team, this where calmness will come, and then they will understand how they can learn certain things and go deeper instead of like very much scratching the surface on a very broad set of topics.
I guess you want your team to prioritize their own personal growth as well. So by you taking the time and visibly and transparently prioritizing that for yourself, you're giving permission and setting the example that actually this is something that everybody should be doing.
And you need to allocate a lot of time to coaching members.
Right.
Like not that you come in here with wisdom, but actually to jump 2 layers down and like to have this open space, like open door framework, and to develop this trust with the team that they can come and discuss it. You can dig into their aspiration, like what is motivating them, what is important for them, and then based on that, you will understand how to guide them. And this is what is most rewarding for them also to know this, like where they need to go, because no one really understands where they want to be initially. Yes. It's a work in progress always.
And it's also a two-way street, those conversations, right? It's not just helping and coaching them for their growth, but you get so much out of it when you take that role as well with people. And it's good for your leadership development and your personal growth as well to be involved in that kind of coaching relationship with your team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. How do you overcome the linguistic and cultural barriers to get to the senior leadership level and then fit in, right? So we see this so many times. You've been an awesome developer, you get all the way through, and then everybody tells you being a CTO has got very little to do with actually being a technologist. Now all of a sudden you have to talk the talk of being an executive. So how do you grow in that area then?
The topic of culture barriers usually triggering me each time. So, and in my current company, we were talking quite a lot about this is a French culture, this is American culture, and so on. So essentially, there is no like cultural barriers. You need to find a common ground. This is our company values, and these are principles like do's and don'ts. And then you reinforcing and re-emphasizing, because culture is not what you put in the wall, it's actually the observational part of this. And when you really elevating the highs and then trying to smooth down lows and realigning the whole organization, reinforcing this culture, you are building one culture. So really cultural barriers doesn't exist because you are building your own culture in a company, like not from tech perspective, company is building their own culture. And then linguistic, when you don't need to be an expert in all languages, right? So you can make mistakes, and I'm doing tons. So, and most important, how precise and consistent you are, and then the team can understand you. It's a whole art from the book that's working backwards, like how you are actually writing the effective one-pager. Right. And it's important to write down because it's it's giving you this time and space to reflect on what you actually trying to say. And like Einstein said, like 95% spent on the formulating the problem, then he's spending 5% on the solving the problem. And if you can't really very fast and very precise describe the problem, you don't understand the problem. So I'm not looking at those two things as a barrier. It's something what is the personal growth per se.
Right. I think one of the talks earlier was talking about, is it the one on empathy, where we were talking about it's tailoring your message to your audience, really. It's just saying the same thing, but you have to vary it depending on whether you're speaking to your team or if you're sat in your exec team. It's the same thing you need to say, but how are they going to hear it? Then you just have to learn how to adapt your messaging to the people that you're with. Yeah. Okay, let's do one more. How do you balance personal growth career and personal family life? Now, I've always had a bit of an issue with the kind of the work-life balance phrase as well, and again, it might just be me. But I think I saw somebody once describe it as not about a work-life balance, but it's about integration. They both exist. You have to figure out how to integrate them in such a way that's gonna work for you. So yeah, give us your thoughts on this then to close out.
Yeah, I also have absolutely the same opinion about work-life balance. It's about each person has the integrity. So there are certain things which are important for you. And you just need to keep those boundaries. Sometimes they're shrinking a little bit, and it should be okay with you what you are shrinking, but it has a tendency to creep. So you're pushing something away because time is not something what we have. It's something what we are borrowing. So essentially, you need to choose where you're borrowing it from, and to understand what you can jeopardize and what you can't jeopardize. So when I was doing a little backstory, so I was having the CTO position. It's a lot what is going on with the company, and the world is changing around us. I have 3 kids, and I have executive education, which takes like 2 solid days each week of writing, analyzing, reading tons of information. So at that point, I shrink my time, which I'm spending with the family a little bit, but I took it from my free time. I know that it's a limited time, so it's just 1 year. I will survive. So each Saturday I was waking up at 5 in the morning. I was going to the kitchen, locking myself, and was trying to do this thing before the family will wake up. And then after sleep, I was doing the same. And this is how I was coping, because as long as you know that it's not forever, you can allocate this time. But you need to be very, very cautious of when the scope is creeping and you're not noticing. Right. Because at some point you will wake up and you will understand that you jeopardize tons of things which you were supposed not to do this, and we are living just once.
Yes. Okay, just to finish up then, recommendations, follow-up, where should people go to try and, if you've lit that light bulb for them now and you're sat out there thinking, I really have to pay more attention to this, where should they go? How should they think of it more?
Books. I love books, and I think in each single book about either it's a historical, like about a certain development of the companies, or it's the biography, all of those, they give you a piece of information which, when you read in a certain time, you will read this book through the lens what is relevant for you, and you will get something from that. So books, never underestimate the power of those. And podcasts, as I said already, Elena's podcast is super important. Right. Because it gives you the whole spectrum, like work-life balance to the like particular focus on the design or whatever. It's very interesting. Yeah, Twitter.
Yep.
Good source of information.
And CTO Craft, obviously.
And CTO Craft.
Great. Thank you very much. We will wrap it up there. No time for any more questions, but we'll be around. There are plenty more to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.